All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get right into it. It's Friday. I have a cold. I have my nice deep radio voice on, so we'll see how far I go before I go camera off, so I can go play with my box of tissues that I have sitting next to me here.
Box of tissues is like a requirement on any desk, I think. I have a box of tissues. I did. Oh, mine's over here. I have a box of tissues as well, just all the time, because I have allergies in Florida, and allergies.
They do not mix at all.
No, especially right now. So it was like 80 2 days ago. It's like 60 today. 2 days, it's going to be 80. And I feel like when the temperature swings 20 degrees every 2 days, or at least 20 degrees Fahrenheit, it just leads to
Disaster.
allergies everywhere. Yeah, like I wake up in the middle of the night. The other night, I woke up like 5 or 6, 7, 8 sneezes in a row. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm sleeping. Like it literally woke me up when I started sneezing. This is
All right.
supposed to happen.
All right. So pre-show. So I got your video recording. I'm recording my audio. Are you recording your audio?
I just hit the button. I'm recording my audio.
Okay,
so
good.
that was absolutely a pre-show. That is not making it onto the live episode.
Yep, there we go. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and get into it.
All right. So let's start with this one, Scott, because I didn't know that you did not know about this. And people ask us sometimes how we keep up with different updates. I get the question different times, like, how do you keep up with everything going on? And I sent you a feature and you're like, where are you pulling this from? There is this nifty site out there, and this is Microsoft 365 related. So if you're on Azure, I don't know of something like this in Azure, but it is roadmapwatch.com. And it is a Microsoft employee, Joe Palarcio, something like that. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, but he created this website, and it's pretty much just an RSS feed watching the Microsoft 365 roadmap. So in my RSS feed, I use Feedly, whatever you choose to use for your RSS feed. I get a roadmap watch post in this RSS feed daily, and it has any new Microsoft 365 features that have been added to the roadmap and any Microsoft 365 features that have been updated on the roadmap. So I tell people, I'm like, go watch the Microsoft 365 roadmap. While I watch it, I don't usually watch it by going to the roadmap site itself. I flip through my RSS feeds and look at this roadmap watch feed. And frankly, it's really nice. Like it has statuses for updates. Are they rolling out? Are they in development? What is the various statuses of these? So it just gives me a nice, easy way amidst all my other news updates in my RSS feed to keep an eye on what's coming to the Microsoft 365 roadmap.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. I put a screenshot in the chat of just kind of how it comes together. So just to kind of recap, it's looks like a daily single post thing that just rolls up the entire roadmap, which is really nice because the M365 roadmap doesn't really have a great way to follow an RSS feed for it. Like you can certainly follow over in Tech Community and all those other kinds of things, but it's not quite the same. So this is really nice. You mentioned Azure roadmap. Azure really doesn't have a public roadmap. There are services within Azure that have roadmaps associated with them. So maybe one of the big ones that comes to mind for me is Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS. They are really developed in the open, and you can just go to their GitHub repo, and they have a public roadmap directly on their Git repo. Other than that, you're kind of stuck to Azure updates or, watching, the Azure blog for, hey, is there a new preview feature coming out? Something like that. If you really wanted to pixel peep on Azure stuff, and I don't advocate this for anybody's mental health, go watch the SDK repositories, because the SDKs need to launch client functionality ahead of time. It needs to be ready to go by the time that it gets released in Azure. So I know it's something that I can struggle with a little bit on the storage side, in that I'm working with the dev team and we're like, well, what do we put in our, change log for this thing that's going to be public? Because we're going to have to almost kind of pre-announce it if somebody knew it was here. So you can do that, or the other fun way to do it, I don't know if anybody has done this, maybe we should, I think we've talked about it in the past, is there's a public pricing API for Azure, and you don't need to be authenticated to it or anything like that. It's just a big OData feed that you can go in and query on, so you can do things like selects and filters and sorts. But if you query on the pricing API, much like maybe like an SDK where the feature needs to be like built ahead of time and ready to go by the time it rolls out, same thing for pricing meters. You can't launch a product until you're able to really charge customers for it. So the meters tend to show up, depending on the cadence, quite a bit beforehand. It could be days, could be weeks, something like that, but they are there.
I wouldn't mind if they started pushing out features without pricing or the ability to charge for them. I mean, it's kind of nice to have free Azure features.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say some things, but I can't about the way that happens sometimes. I will leave it at, sometimes customers do get stuff for free because a meter is just missing. Like, oh, it's not there in that region or for that thing or whatever it is. So,
we don't need to go down that path anymore.
Yeah. So back to this thing, really cool kind of tool.
It is.
I would put this up there with some of the other things we talked about, like the Azure Policy Watcher. You've got like Azure Charts, which I think we've talked about in the past as well, which kind of gives you that ability to go through and kind of live query for changes around, hey, here's a new region. That even has a timeline view in Azure Charts. If folks want to go check that out, like I'll put a link in the show notes, and people can go take a look at that. So
yeah, the interesting one I would say about the Roadmap Watch, and I've fallen into this before, is while it has an RSS feed, there's no like front end blog on it or anything. So when it shows up in the RSS feed, I don't know if you do this. Sometimes I like click on the title to go view the full page and view the article. That does not work with this. It just takes you to like this blank roadmap page. So it's great to view in your RSS feed, but the website itself is really nothing more than a RSS feed kind of almost hiding in the background, because the RSS feed isn't visible on the page itself.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like in that post, like the one I put the screenshot of, like you can click on that and that takes you directly into that roadmap ID. So it is already kind of pre-filtered and sorted out for you. Like this is almost like, go to this website, go to this thing, roadmapwatch.com, go to the RSS thing, go grab the RSS feed, pop that in your feed catcher of choice, and you're off to the races. You really don't have to go back to the site.
No, the only time I've gone back to it is sometimes, like, for instance, doing the podcast. If I want to, as I go through articles, I like hit to add them to Pocket or to wherever maybe you save articles to. It doesn't work for this because there is no article on roadmapwatch.com that is associated with what shows up in your RSS feed.
Gotcha. Well,
anyways. Yeah, use it for the RSS feed. But because of this, I can't remember if I actually spotted it on the roadmap or if I saw it on Twitter today. There's an interesting new feature that popped up on the roadmap as well.
What's that?
This is Microsoft Teams explicit recording consent for Teams meetings. And I saw this pop up, and it's one of those, I was like, what is explicit recording consent? Right now, general availability is March 2023. but it is a new meeting policy for Microsoft Teams that when it's applied, the Teams meeting window will request consent of all the different participants. So if yourself, me, who's listening to us today, David and Wayne are all in a meeting, it sounds like when you would click to record it, every single participant would get some prompt of, do you consent to being recorded as part of this meeting? If you give consent, great, everything will get recorded. But if you don't give consent, it appears like from this article, it says before a user gives consent, or I'm assuming if they don't give consent, the user's audio, video, and screen share and consent share. I don't know what screen share / consent share. I know what screen share is. I don't know what consent share is. Won't be captured in the meeting recording. So it sounds like, and this could be interesting. I'd be really interested to record a meeting where somebody didn't consent. Like, are you going to end up with gaps where that person is talking, or if that person shares their screen, you just get like dead airtime in this meeting because they didn't consent, but they're still participating. But it does kind of give a little bit more of, I guess, an ability to record a meeting and allow certain people to be excluded from that recording.
Yeah, interesting one. I'll totally try it out with you once it comes out. How do you handle this today? Like, I know in a lot of the meetings I'm in, usually what we do is we hop on, and anything that's going to be recorded for posterity, we basically, whoever's in charge of it, like say, I don't know, I'm doing an internal webinar to the field, right? We'll have everybody hops on, and you have 200, 300 people in there sometimes. It's not like you can go around the room and say, does everybody consent? So usually what we just do is we put up a slide and we say, hey, this content is whatever. It's, could be NDA, internal only, but any kind of labels. And one of the things we also include on those kind of common slides is this meeting is going to be recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, go ahead and hop off now. We're recording it, so you can totally come back later and watch the recording. Like, participation is optional at that point.
Right.
So that's kind of how we play it. I think this will be interesting to see. Like, yeah, I'd have to see how it works in like a small one, and then a larger group. Like I said, where you've got like 300-400 people in there. You just go round robin and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that your illustration or how it happens in your meetings, I think that's a common way. Like, I'm on small meetings, and if I'm going to record it, if it's a client call and I want to record it for going back and taking notes later or catching things I missed, I'll be like, does everybody mind? Can we record it? Again, 2 or 3 people. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and record it. You click record, it pops up different messages about it being recorded. I've been on some like you have too, where it's bigger ones, 300 people, and it's kind of the same thing. We're going to record this meeting. It's not, can we record this meeting? It's, this meeting is being recorded. If you don't want to be on video, you don't want to be heard, or you don't want it to be known that you were in the meeting, either don't talk, don't share your camera, or you better just leave. And it's kind of up to the users of by staying, by staying, you're giving your consent to be recorded.
I mean,
by
it's
participating,
implicit, right? You stuck around, yeah.
So, but this is interesting because it would essentially give people that ability to stick around, to participate, to share their screen. But then it sounds like, again, be excluded from that final recording of the meeting.
Nifty. Like I said, I'll play with it when it comes out. We'll have to try it out together and see.
Absolutely. We will definitely have to do that because I'm curious to see how this one works, and more so like what that final recording looks like. It doesn't look like it's that far off. So we shall see. Do you have a news article, or you want me to go with my other one that I saw this week? Since you're feeling under the weather, do you want me to keep talking?
No, you're all good. So I think you called this out for me, actually. This is Azure AD introducing IPv6 support.
Yes.
So
This is another fun one.
yeah,
I think useful. I would say more useful. Maybe not fun. It's kind of a boring announcement, but I think useful and necessary would probably be a better.
you'd be maybe you wouldn't be amazed, but there are lots of people across the various services that we have who are always knocking on the door and saying like, when is IPv6 coming to this thing in some way, shape, or form? So what this announcement is it covers IPv6 support for conditional access and being able to do things like matches and conditional access, in addition to your existing named locations, anything like that that you already have configured. So that should be pretty good. So now when you go and create your named location, like, Ben's office, you can go ahead and pump that in with either an IPv4 or an IPv6 range. If it's not available to you, coming soon to a tenant near you. So it looks like it starts broad rollout in March, like end of March, March 31.
Okay. Yeah, I was just like, I said that, then I was like, I don't have March 31. But I've seen this. I can't remember where I was looking the other day. If it was on my router, I was going through, I review my firewall logs every once in a while and see which countries and which people might be trying to get into my network here. Or I was looking through Azure AD audit logs where there's IP addresses, but I am starting to see more and more IPv6 addresses pop up in these different logging places. And again, I think this is quickly becoming a necessity because more and more people are hitting websites, hitting services, hitting Office 365 coming from an IPv6 address rather than a v4. Which, interestingly enough, completely unrelated, I figured out where Sessionize is hosted the other day because I was seeing a bunch of traffic coming into my router from a particular country, blocked that country, and like 2 days later, I'm like, why can't I get to Sessionize to submit sessions? I was going through everything. I was like beating my head against the wall. Lo and behold, they were coming from the country I happened to block.
I always struggle with that one on like my Pi-hole too, when something gets blocked and I'm like, crap, what do I do? Do I unblock it? Do I give just a single client an exception? Like, what's my path forward here?
Yes.
The struggle is real if you actively manage your home network.
It absolutely is. But no, I was glad to see this IPv6 coming. And for those of you that have conditional access, keep an eye for this to pop into your tenant, especially if you haven't been able to do trusted locations or set up conditional access policies based on where people are coming from due to only having support for IPv4 in the past.
All good stuff.
Absolutely. What else do we have today, Scott?
I mean, sky's the limit, right?
Sky's the limit.
Here's one that's been sitting over me for a while, being in Azure storage. So we recently, within like the last week or so here, finally GA'd 5 gig putblob requests. And these are kind of interesting to me. So the way Azure storage works is you can have a kind of a single object put, like, hey, I'm going to upload this file, and this file is, I don't know, say it's like a small Excel file and it's 4 megabytes, something like that. You can do that in a single operation, but as your threshold started to increase in just kind of general size, like, okay, I'm at 4 megabytes. Oops, I'm at 50. I'm at 100. I'm at 256. When's the logical place for you to start breaking that into chunks and then sending it over the wire so you can maybe parallelize the operation, get it up there a little bit faster, whatever it happens to be? And it's been one of these things where we're like, not every operation can always be broken up that way. It doesn't always make sense. Sometimes you want to, frankly, have parity with other services. So, like S3 has a 5 GB single object upload. So, like, hey, this is probably a good thing for us to have as well. But yeah, it's nice. It's out there. Finally GA'd after a long time. I think it was like a year plus in preview. And I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see how that filters down into client tooling and things like that. Like, you always have I think, logical defaults within data movement tools within Azure when it comes to storage. So think about maybe AZ copy. Like AZ copy has a set of logical defaults for when it'll look and it'll say, oh, your file, this object is above a certain threshold. So I'm just going to break it into pieces because it'll be quicker, better, faster, stronger, things like that. But clients can always override that. So as clients get updated with, the latest service versions and, that capability, like should be able to do all that stuff from there too, which is kind of nifty. So now if you have, like I said, a 5 GB whatever thing, you can totally go ahead and mash it up into the service in one go. Just make sure your connection's stable.
Yeah, that's not an insignificant file size across some network connections. This was also not just like a little incremental upgrade. This was a massive, like before this, it was only 200. I didn't even realize this because I don't put blob limits very closely. It was only 256 megs before. So this was like a 20x increase over what the previous limit was. So you
yes.
a big jump there from 256 to 5 gigs.
Well, to be fair, you could upload objects greater than 256 megs. You just had to break them up into pieces. Like once you cross 256,
5 gigs.
Yep. You would put them in there. And I think like the majority of customers, honestly, like you're still better served by splitting your requests into multiple chunks because then you get better concurrency. You can stream like multiple blocks at the same time. Get them all up there as fast as you can, then go ahead and do a commit and get it to where it needs to be. But it's interesting kind of scale work on the back end to make it all work too, because we effectively had a 20x increase not only in single object puts, but that also translated into some work we did around block puts. And we had a similar kind of rate there. So you basically went from a 4.75 terabyte max object size in kind of earlier versions of the REST API up to almost 200 terabytes, which is pretty cool.
It would be kind of fun to work on data that size. I don't know that I've ever tried to put 200 terabytes anywhere. It's
an interesting thing. I hope we start hiring again someday because we do some really cool stuff. Like I work with customers typically on migrations that they're on the order of tens of petabytes, if not hundreds, which is kind of fun. It's just at a scale that I think I never really saw when I was in the real world. Like, ooh, let's do a data center migration, and we're migrating a couple thousand machines, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's massive. And then you get over to the other side, and you're like, oh crap, there's 300 petabytes. What do we got to do to do that?
Yeah, see, that's what I think. Like, the size of my company, me and a couple of contractors working for me, I am probably never going to see anything of that scale in my current role. I'm not saying I want to go work for Microsoft just to see that, but I do think that working on something that scale or seeing something that scale or having the opportunity to look at some of those massive scales where it's one of those things, like you said, you don't run across it every day. It's fascinating when you get into some of those situations. So
yep. It's certainly a Yeah. It's kind of a humbling thing. Like once you step in on it, and it's funny. We have a lot. We struggle a lot, I think, with just kind of internal rationalization of like how we spend our time, and sometimes where's the best time to spend your place when it comes to helping an account team with a customer or upskilling a community, things like that.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll get a request that'll come through, and somebody will go, I have whatever. I have this 200 terabyte file share that I need to push around and get there, and it's just this massive thing, and it's going to be a huge undertaking. And you just kind of nod your head and you go like, I hear you, I get it, it's big, but like we're working with slightly bigger things. So here's an article on migrations. Go have fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and some of those things too, it's like, how do you even plan for them? Because realistically, some of the scale that you encounter, it's, well, we've never done anything that big before. And I'm sure there's times when you discover different bugs or different limitations that maybe you never knew about just because you don't run across it every day.
Yeah.
So I have some other Azure news. I did not prep you for this one, Scott, but it was one I saw on I actually saw someone post about this on Mastodon. So I've been playing, side topic, I have been playing more with Mastodon. I'm over there, you're over there. The podcast is over there, all of that. And this is one that came up there, is some changes to exchanges and refunds for Azure reservations. I don't know. I have the Learn link to it. I don't know that I've seen an announcement around it, but there is a note in there. And I just bring this up too because I know reservations can go out 1 year or 3 years, but coming January 1 of 2024, so little less than a year now to plan for this, there's going to be some changes coming to reservations when it comes to exchanging those. So previously, with a reserved instance, you could do some exchanges to move regions or change series sizes. So there were different ways. Even though you bought a reserved instance for 1 year, 3 years, you could go in and do some exchanges if you needed a different series, a different region, that type of stuff. January 1, 2024, there is not going to be exchanges anymore when it comes to exchanges for regions or changes to series. You'll still be able to do exchanges to scale within a particular series. So if you bought a D3 and you need to go up to a D5 and do an exchange to scale up within that series, you're still going to be able to do that after January 1. But if you need to move from East US to East US 2, or if you need to move from a G series to an N series or V series, you're not going to be able to do an exchange there. So maybe a little bit more planning when it comes to reserved instances. If you think maybe you're going to have to change regions or change series, you might want to go look at those Azure savings plans that we talked about. We talked about those, I don't know, a few episodes ago. But, and there was some conversation. To me, it kind of makes sense, right? Like reserved instances are made to help them plan for, essentially, you get cheaper because they know you're going to buy something, they're planning for it. But if you start swapping around which region you're in or which series you have, it makes planning a little harder because you're making a change that's maybe completely different from what they expected when you bought this reservation 6 months ago, or if you did a 3-year reservation 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. I think tough if you've been all in on reservations and you're used to the model, but the reality is there's kind of a back to the whole metering discussion from earlier. There's a new way to buy these things if you're looking for that level of flexibility, and that is those savings plans for compute. So if you're looking at those things and you're going like, yeah, like I really do need to be able to swap between regions and do all that stuff, like reservations might not be the thing that you want to look at anymore. Like go look at savings plans for compute. That's why they're out there. That's why they exist.
100%. So unfortunate, like you said, unfortunate if you're used to it. I can see why they did it, especially because there are those savings plans now. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But again,
on the time, stuff changes. But it's a good catch and a good call out. I hadn't seen that one either. Like that change did not hit any of the usual like update feeds or kind of deprecation announcement things that I tend to keep my eye on.
Yeah, again, how do you keep up with all of it? Some of it's just random. That's when we're here, right, Scott, to catch all the news from all the different places.
That's it. We're human RSS aggregators. Got it.
Yeah, something like that. So with that, I know you're feeling under the weather. We've been going for about 30 minutes. Call it a day. You can go take a nap, get better.
Let's do it. I'm ready for it. I'm gonna be ready and ready to go next week. Yeah, I have a. We'll talk next week. I have a Learn Live delivery, so I think that'll be kind of fun. We can talk a little bit about what Learn Live is and how folks can kind of listen in and follow along with those.
All right, sounds like fun. For now, go take a lesson from your dog in the background. Your dog is like nice and comfortable there, sprawled out like
my tissues. Yeah.
Go lay down, take a nap. Hope you're getting better. Anybody that's listening that wants to join us live, we talked about some of these screenshots, images we've posted in the Discord chat. Go check out msclouditpro.com/membership. You can check out the membership options, join us live we're doing both audio and video now in Discord, so you can see us, you can interact with us, take part in the chat, all of those fun things. But for now, go get better, Scott. Enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, great. Thanks, Ben.